Your kids are a burden, they don't belong here. My dad yelled at family dinner. My sister smirked, don't forget to pay my rent by the end of the month, but when I walked out and cut them off completely, I got 43 missed calls. I had spent years believing that family meant sacrifice. That it was normal to give until you bled because, in the end, love was worth more than money. Right? That was the lie I had been fed since childhood, the script I had followed blindly. But the day I finally said no, the day I refused to be their personal ATM, everything changed. My name is Nick Carter, and I am the CEO of a successful IT firm. For over a decade, I provided for my family without question. My parents, my sister Melanie, even my deadbeat brother Brian, I funded their lives. I paid their bills, covered their debts, fixed their mistakes. My mother had a new business every year. Essential oils, homemade soaps, custom scarves. But the candle-making venture? That was the one I got dragged into the hardest. I designed the website, built an entire e-commerce platform, ran targeted ads. My mother was thrilled for a month. Then she got bored. Just like she always did. Maybe this just isn't my calling, she sighed dramatically over Thanksgiving dinner, barely acknowledging the hours I had poured into her latest failure. And my father? His favorite line, Melanie works so hard as a nurse. You know how tough it is raising 2 kids alone. She needs help, Nikki? You can afford it. Melanie had never been good with money. Credit card debt, payday loans, impulsive purchases. Every time she was drowning, I was the lifeline. It was always an emergency. Always a crisis. Then there was Brian. Fired from his last 3 jobs, the most recent one for showing up drunk to a corporate meeting. He never got lectures. Never got guilt-tripped. Because he was going through a rough patch. But me? I was the golden goose. The one who had made it. And apparently success came with a price, my freedom. It wasn't until my own sons were growing up that I finally saw the truth. My parents barely acknowledged them. If I asked for help watching them? Oh, Nick, maybe you should hire a nanny. We're too old for this. But if Melanie needed a babysitter? They dropped everything. The final straw came when I refused to fund Melanie's latest financial disaster. And suddenly, I wasn't family anymore. I never questioned it growing up. That Melanie got the brand new iPhone for her birthday while I got a practical gift like a laptop for school. That when I asked for basketball shoes, Mom sighed and said, Nick, do you really need those? Your old ones are fine. But when Melanie wanted designer boots, Dad swiped his credit card without a second thought. That I started working at 15, stocking shelves at an electronics store, while Brian and Melanie never lifted a finger. Nick is responsible. He'll figure things out. They called it praise. Now I see it for what it was, a life sentence. If you can take care of yourself, you must. And if you have more, you owe more. That was the unspoken rule. Melanie had it the easiest. As the only daughter, she was showered with affection, spoiled beyond reason. She never faced consequences. She wrecked her first car at 18, Dad bought her another one the next week. She maxed out credit cards and Mom blamed those greedy banks. And Brian? Brian was a mess. Always getting into trouble, always making excuses. He got fired from his last job for showing up drunk, and instead of holding him accountable, our parents comforted him. Not everyone's as lucky as you, Nick. He's going through a rough patch. Lucky? I built my life from nothing. I started my IT firm in a tiny apartment, pulling all-nighters, living off instant ramen. No handouts. No safety net. I clawed my way up, risking everything, while they coasted. And when I finally made it, they acted like my success belonged to them. We're so proud of you, son. You're doing so well. And you know, family takes care of each other. That was always the line. The guilt trip wrapped in praise. It started small, little things here and there. Melanie needed help with rent just for 1 month. Brian had an overdue credit card bill. Mom's car broke down. Dad's roof needed repairs. And I could help. I was making 6 figures after all. At first, I gave willingly. It felt good to provide. To be the successful son. But soon, the asks became expectations. Melanie stopped even pretending to struggle. She booked spa weekends and took trips to Cancun, and when I raised an eyebrow, she scoffed, God, Nick, I need a break. You don't get it, you don't have kids. Brian never looked for another job. He just texted me, bro, I need a favor, and drop his Venmo. And Mom? Mom was the worst of all. She had a new business idea every year. Essential oils. Knitted scarves. Personalized mugs. Each time I was dragged in to build the website, set up payments, run ads. Then came the candle disaster. Mom decided she wanted to start selling homemade candles. It's going to be huge, Nick. People love handcrafted stuff. I should have known better. But I spent weeks coding an e-commerce site for her. built her a beautiful online shop, even paid for the first batch of inventory. She lost interest within a month. Maybe candles just aren't my passion. Like all the other failed ventures. Like the thousands of dollars I'd sunk into her ideas, hoping this time it would be different. But I never said anything. Because it was Mom. And then came the ultimate slap in the face. My own children, my actual family, were an inconvenience to them. Mom refused to babysit. Dad wouldn't help either. When I asked, I got the same patronizing response. Nick, you can afford a nanny. You should hire someone professional. But when Melanie needed a babysitter, they dropped everything. When she had an issue with her kids, it was everyone's problem. When Brian drank away his last paycheck, it was my problem. But my problems? My needs? Nick, you're independent. You don't need anything from us. They were right. I didn't need anything from them. But for the first time in my life, I started wondering, why did I need them? And what would happen if I just stopped giving? The day I said no. It started with a phone call. I was in my office wrapping up a call with a major client when my phone buzzed with Mom's name flashing on the screen. I almost ignored it. Almost. But the thing about my mother was, if you didn't answer the first time, she'd just keep calling. And calling. With a sigh, I picked up. Nick, sweetheart, we need to talk. Her voice was sugary sweet, the same voice she used when she wanted something. What is it, Mom? It's your sister. She's in trouble. Of course, she was. Melanie was always in trouble. What now? I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. She lost her job. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. Let me guess, I said, rubbing my temple. She needs money. Mom hesitated. That slight pause. That fraction of a second where she realized I had caught on. Well, it's just temporary, she said quickly. You know how hard she works. She's been juggling the kids, the house, it's been so stressful for her. No. Silence. A stunned, unnatural silence. What? Mom finally said, as if I had spoken a foreign language. I said no, Mom. The words felt strange in my mouth. Unnatural. Like breaking a script I had been following my entire life. Nicholas, she has 2 children. How can you be so heartless? She also has an ex-husband who pays child support, I shot back. And 2 parents who could help. Why is it always me? You know Brian can't afford. Then maybe Brian should get a job instead of getting drunk every weekend. A sharp inhale. Nicholas, this is your family, she said, her voice turning cold. No, Mom, I said, my voice just as icy. I was your bank account. And I'm closed for business. And for the first time in my life, I hung up on her. I expected guilt. I expected doubt. But all I felt was relief. And then the storm came. The fallout. The next morning, my phone was a battlefield. Missed calls. Voicemails. Furious texts. Dad, you are abandoning your family. Unbelievable. Mom, I can't believe how selfish you've become. Melanie, wow. Just wow, Nick. After everything I've done for you. Brian, ironically, was silent. Maybe because he knew this had been coming. And then the final message. Mom, your father's in the hospital. I hope you're happy. My stomach dropped. The hospital guilt trip. When I arrived, Melanie was already there, pacing outside Dad's room, her arms crossed tight. The moment she saw me, she scoffed. Oh, look. The golden boy finally decided to show up. What happened? I asked, ignoring her tone. Mom stepped out of the hospital room, her eyes red but calculating. He had a stress episode, she said. From everything you put him through. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, so this is my fault? Melanie glared at me. You abandoned us, Nick. You just cut us off like we were nothing. You were nothing to me, I said flatly. Nothing but parasites. Melanie gasped like I had slapped her. Nicholas. Mom scolded. But I wasn't done. You think I don't see what's happening here? I gestured to Dad's hospital bed. This isn't stress. This is a pathetic attempt to guilt me into paying for you all again. Silence. Then Dad's weak, hoarse voice. We're your family. I stepped closer, looking him dead in the eyes. No, Dad. You were a bill I kept paying. I turned and walked out. The real test. I expected things to go quiet after that. I was wrong. The next week, my parents went nuclear. They started calling my employees, asking them to talk sense into me. They reached out to my business partners, feeding them sob stories about how I was letting my poor, struggling family suffer while I lived in luxury. They even showed up at my house. I refused to answer the door. Then the kicker. Mom texted me a bank account number and a single message. Just send what you can. We'll forgive you. Forgive me? That was the moment I knew. This wasn't about love. It had never been about love. It was about control. I blocked their numbers. Every Single. One. And just like that, I was free. The one I didn't expect. A week later, someone knocked on my door. It was Brian. Sober. He looked different. Tired, maybe. Older. "I know what you're thinking," he said. "And no, I'm not here for money." I crossed my arms. "Then why are you here?" He exhaled slowly. "To say you were right." That caught me off guard. "Come again." Brian rubbed his face. "After you cut them off, they turned to me. Started demanding I help. Like I suddenly had a trust fund stashed somewhere." He laughed bitterly. "When I told them no, Mom lost her mind. Called me a disappointment. Said I wasn't a real son if I wouldn't sacrifice for my family." I stayed silent, because I knew exactly how that felt. Brian shook his head. "They don't love us, Nick. They love what we give them." I studied him carefully. For the first time in years, Brian wasn't just the screw-up brother who wasted his chances. He was someone who finally saw the truth. "So what are you going to do?" I asked. He shrugged. "What you did. Walk away." A part of me wanted to tell him it was too late, that he had spent too long on their side. But another part of me, the part that still believed people could change, offered him a beer instead. "You should have never pushed me." For years I ignored the signs. For years I told myself that my family loved me, that I owed them for raising me, that it was my duty to take care of them. But the moment they suggested I should hire a nanny for my own kids instead of expecting my parents to help, that was it. That was the moment they made their biggest mistake. Because in that moment, I saw the truth. They didn't see me as their son. They didn't see me as their brother. They saw me as a wallet with legs. And I was about to show them exactly what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. Step 1. Cutting them off completely. Blocking their numbers was just the beginning. I made sure they had no access to me anymore. Changed my email. Cut them off from my business contacts. Warned my assistant not to accept any calls from them. I even changed my home security system, just in case Mom got any ideas about showing up unannounced. And then I waited, because I knew they would come crawling back. I didn't have to wait long. Step 2. Making them pay literally. A month passed. Then came the first desperate email. Mom's email. "Nicholas, we need to talk. Your father is struggling with medical bills, and Melanie is at risk of losing her apartment. We are still your family. You can't just abandon us." I smiled, because what she didn't know, I had already spoken to Dad's doctor, and surprise, surprise, he was fine. No serious medical issues. No massive hospital debts. Just another lie. Melanie's apartment? Oh, I had checked. She wasn't at risk of losing anything. She had just spent too much on luxury vacations again and wanted me to cover it. So I ignored the email. 2 weeks later, they tried again. Dad's email. "Nick, son, please. I don't know why you're acting like this, but we are family. You can't let your own flesh and blood suffer while you live in comfort." I laughed out loud at that one. Because wasn't that exactly what they had done to me for years? But now that the money had stopped flowing, they were suffering. Good. Step 3. Destroying the illusion. The final straw came when Mom showed up at my office. She must have sweet-talked the receptionist because the next thing I knew, she was standing in my doorway, fake tears in her eyes. "Nicholas, we need to fix this." I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. "Fix what, exactly?" "This family. You've broken us." I almost burst out laughing. "No, Mom. You broke this family the moment you decided my only worth was my bank account." She gasped, like I had just slapped her. "How can you say that?" she whispered. "After everything we've done for you." "What have you done for me, Mom?" I interrupted, my voice ice-cold. "Tell me one thing." "One." She opened her mouth, closed it. She had nothing, because the truth was brutal. They had done nothing for me. And the moment I had children of my own, they didn't even want to be grandparents, they just wanted me to pay for their lifestyle forever. I stood up, walking around my desk until I was standing right in front of her. "You want to know the real reason I cut you all off?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Mom swallowed hard. "Because when I asked you to watch your own grandchildren, your own flesh and blood, you told me to hire a nanny. Because helping me, For once in your life was too much to ask. She turned pale. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. I cut in. And that was the moment I realized you don't care about me. You never did. And now? Now I don't care about you either. Her mouth opened, then closed, because she knew. She had lost me. For good. She tried one last tactic, tears. Nikki, please, we're your family. I smiled. Not anymore. And I called security to escort her out. Step 4, the final blow. The next day, Dad called Brian. Desperate. Begging him to talk some sense into me. And Brian? Brian laughed in his face. Nick was right about you all along, Brian told him. And I finally see it too. So guess what, Dad? I'm done with you too. That was it. That was the real end of our family. Because now, they had no one left to leech off of. And without my money, without my support, they crumbled. Melanie's downfall. Melanie lost her apartment within 3 months. She called everyone she knew, begging for a loan. No one helped her, because I had made sure they all knew exactly what kind of person she was. She had to move back in with our parents, the very people who had enabled her for years. Imagine that. 36 years old, broke, and stuck in the same childhood bedroom she once mocked me for being too serious in. Dad had to sell the house. Not just sell it for less than market value. Turns out he had racked up so much debt that the bank was ready to take everything. And guess what? For the first time in his life, he had no one to bail him out. Mom tried to beg other relatives for help, but guess what? I had already told them everything. No one wanted to bail them out. Because no one wants to help a family of leeches once they realize the truth. And me? I went on with my life. Better. Happier. Finally free. And I didn't feel a single ounce of guilt. Because they had brought this on themselves. They should have never pushed me. They should have never made me choose between them and my own family. Because they never realized. I was never really theirs to begin with. 1 year later, the best decision I ever made. It's been exactly 1 year since I cut my family off. 1 year since I stopped being their personal bank. 1 year since I finally chose myself. And let me tell you, I regret nothing. What happened after I walked away? At first, I expected guilt. Maybe a little doubt. Instead, I felt free. For the first time in my life, my phone wasn't constantly buzzing with demands. I wasn't stressed about covering someone else's rent, bills, or last-minute emergency that was never actually an emergency. I could finally focus on my life. My business thrived. My marriage became stronger. My kids? They got the father they deserved, one who wasn't constantly exhausted from trying to solve everyone else's problems. And my family? Oh, they crumbled. Melanie, living in her own mess. Melanie lost her apartment and had to move back in with our parents. From what I've heard, it's been less than ideal. She's been jumping from one low-paying job to another, constantly complaining about how life isn't fair and Nick abandoned us. But the best part? Mom and Dad finally realized just how much of a financial burden she is. Turns out, without me funding her lifestyle, she's just another broke, entitled adult who never learned to take care of herself. Dad sold the house at a loss. The bank was breathing down his neck with massive unpaid debts, and for the first time in his life, he had to actually deal with the consequences of his actions. The man who once lectured me about family duty and responsibility is now renting a tiny apartment in a bad neighborhood, struggling to make ends meet. A few months ago, Mom tried one last time to guilt me back in. She sent me an email. Mom, Nicholas, your father and I are getting older. We can't live like this forever. You need to understand that family is family. No matter what. Let's put the past behind us. I laughed out loud reading it. I didn't even bother responding. Because the truth is, the past isn't the problem. They are. Going viral on Reddit. A few months ago, I decided to share my story online. I was curious, was I the bad guy for cutting them off? Was I really as selfish as they claimed? So I posted my entire experience on Reddit. And the response? Explosive. Thousands of people commented. Tens of thousands upvoted it. People cheered me on. Some even shared their own stories about cutting off toxic families. It blew my mind. I had spent years believing I was the only one going through this. That I was somehow wrong for standing up for myself. But reading the comments? It confirmed everything. I wasn't wrong. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't selfish. I was just done being used. The final message. Last week, I got one final email. It was from Melanie. Melanie, I hope you're happy, Nick. Mom and Dad are struggling and I'm barely making ends meet. I lost everything because of you. But I know one day you'll realize your mistake. And when that day comes, I hope you remember that family forgives. I'll be waiting. I read it, smiled, and deleted it, because the only mistake I made was not cutting them off sooner. Final thoughts. So here I am, 1 year later, living the best life I've ever had. My business is thriving. My kids are happy. My stress is gone. And my family? They're finally dealing with the consequences of their own actions. If I learned anything from this past year, it's this. Family isn't blood. Family is who treats you like family. And some people don't deserve a second chance.